Hey everybody, Happy New Year and welcome to my Mommy Club. Before we start this video, I want you guys to subscribe and give me a thumbs up and hit that bell somewhere around down in there so that you can join the Mommy Club because it's going to be awesome. If you hear a fan, that's because I have a fan on. It is really hot. Either that or I'm going through some changes. I don't know. So, today is January 1st and I am 6 months postpartum. My baby just turned 6 months today. So I wanted to make a labor and delivery story. I have tried to film this video so many times and I always end up just going blank or getting emotional and I can never film it. But today I am going to get through this video and I need to do this. I feel like I need to do this in order to just move forward. So, let's start with my pregnancy. I'm just gonna do like a once over on my pregnancy. So, my husband and I wasted no time. Probably about 4 months into our marriage, I got pregnant at some point. So I found out I was pregnant and everything was just so scary and exciting. I feel like that's probably most people's reaction. Scared and excited. So the pregnancy was really harsh. My first trimester, I was sick. I lost 15 to 20 pounds. I was throwing up everywhere. I couldn't keep anything down. It was rough. And that was my entire first trimester. And the doctors, of course, were concerned. They thought I was starving myself and everything, but I just could not keep anything down. Everything just smelled terrible to me. It was really rough. I pushed through, of course. My second trimester, I started to feel a lot better. That's like the stage where you start to feel better and happy about the pregnancy, So in my first trimester, I was sick. I was tired. I just had no energy. In my second trimester, I started to get some of my energy back. I found out that I had uterine fibroids, and you guys can Google that if you want to know what that is. I didn't know that I had. Apparently, according to my doctor, I always had it, but it just never showed up until I was pregnant. So that was very scary, of course. And then also at the beginning of my first trimester, I found out there was some blood behind my placenta, and there was a risk of miscarriage there. But if there's blood behind your placenta, then that means at some point your placenta had detached from the uterus, and if that happens, then the baby dies, because that's the source of everything for the baby. Well, I did a lot of research or whatever, and I found out that it could come back together, so I did everything I could to make that happen, so we got rid of that problem. But the fibroids was still an issue, and my fibroids were not on the inside, they were on the outside, which is a little bit better for pregnancy because you don't have, your risk of miscarriage is lower. So, okay, so we found out about those things, and then towards 5 months, I had to stop working. I went and checked myself into the hospital because I was suffering from dehydration, and I was drinking a lot of water, but really,
Yes, really.
I don't know. So I was drinking a lot of water, but it just wasn't working out. The doctor was telling me that, you know, the baby was just pulling all your nutrients. So um I decided, my husband and I decided it was best for me to take a little break because I was standing on my feet all the time and I was tired. So my second trimester towards the end was starting to get a little rough for me, and my fibroid was growing, so it was getting big, you know, almost as big as the baby. So when also in my second trimester, you take that glucose test, you know, to see if you have gestational diabetes. I had gestational diabetes, and then I found out probably towards the end of my second trimester that my baby had VSD. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. So my third trimester was fine, just really tired and getting big. But when I was 39 weeks, my doctor had scheduled me an induction so that I could be induced. The reasons for me being induced were because of the VSD, it has to do with the heart, and the best cardiologist in the state that I live was an hour away from me. So I had to go to that hospital because if something had happened after I delivered, then the cardiologist needed to be on site for the baby. So I had to go there and deliver. So because I live so far, because of the baby's VSD and because I had gestational diabetes, were all reasons for my doctor to induce me. So I went to the hospital on June 29th to be induced. And when I got there, for some reason there were no beds for me, which is weird because my doctor scheduled my induction and there was no beds for me. So they told me to eat before I got there, like an hour before, because I wasn't going to be able to eat once I checked in. So because there was no beds, they was like, well, go and get something else to eat. And I probably, for like an hour and a half, I was waiting. I got checked in, they did all the paperwork, made me sign all this stuff. I had to talk to a bunch of people. And then I had to get my finger pricked the entire time, which I didn't know because of the gestational diabetes. I didn't know they were going to prick my finger every hour. And because I ate, you know, what I wanted to eat. So I was monitoring my gestational diabetes with diet and exercise. But because I didn't know that they were going to finger prick me, I ate whatever I wanted, and my blood sugar, my glucose levels, of course, went up. And if they continued to stay up, then they were going to put me on insulin. So but I didn't end up being on insulin because it went down. So anyway, about 4 p.m. that day is when they started the induction process. Mind you, I hadn't seen my doctor yet. And so the first thing they were going to do, now mind you, I had contractions since probably a few days before, and they were small. So when they hooked me up to all the machines and everything, I had contractions already, but I was not dilated at all. So they wanted to start, and they took some pills and they shove them up, your birth canal, and it's supposed to soften your cervix so that it can get you ready to give birth. And they were hoping that I would dilate, and then they were going to put me on Pitocin, which helps speed up the contractions to get the labor going. So Pitocin makes your body say, okay, we're going into labor. That's pretty much what happens, and then everything else is supposed to happen on its own. So, I was told that I may give birth the day after or something like that. Labor is a long process because this is my first child, and I was being induced. I was in for, a long day. So not to expect the baby that day, maybe the evening of the next day, which would have been June 30th. So so they put the pills up there, and they were going to wait on the Pitocin. So they waited some hours, and I was dilated to 1 centimeter, and that was it. And then they waited some more hours, and nothing was happening. I was having contractions the entire time, and the contractions were picking up, but for some reason I just was not dilating, so I believe probably the evening or the morning of the 30th, something like that, they decided to try something else to help soften my cervix, which was a balloon. So it actually looks like a balloon. They put some fluid in it, and they take the balloon, they shove it way up your birth canal. It was very uncomfortable, by the way. And they expand the balloon inside of you, and they leave it in there for some time, and that's supposed to open your cervix. That did not work, and it was very uncomfortable also, and I think I probably only dilated to 2 centimeters after they took the balloon out. And I was in pain when they were checking to see if I was dilated. I was in pain when they put the balloon in, so they gave me this medicine through my IV. I forgot what it's called, but it's supposed to help me not be uncomfortable, because they told me it was too early to get me an epidural. So this medicine kind of makes you woozy and makes you silly, but it makes you sleepy. So I slept for a while, and then that's when they checked me. I was only 2, but they had to take the balloon out, and then they just kept trying to check me. So now we're into, sometime into the 30th, I guess. June. Are there 31 days in June or 30? I think there's 31 days in June. I believe there's 31 days in June, so yeah, there's 31 days in June. And so between the 30th and the 31st, they broke my water. They gave me a peanut, which is like this ball that you put between your legs, and it like elevates your legs to hopefully open up your cervix. So they were still trying to get my cervix to open. That wasn't working, of course. And then they decided to just put me on Pitocin anyway, thinking that would help soften my cervix. They broke my water, and a little bit after that, I got a fever. And because when they break your water, now your body is exposed to you and the baby getting an infection. So I got one. And then I was on some antibiotics because of that. And then sometime after they broke my water, I couldn't take the pain anymore, and they gave me an epidural, which was the part that I was the most scared about. But the epidural was the easiest thing that I did. It was just so smooth. I was so scared, but it was so smooth. my anesthesiologist who did my epidural was just amazing. And after that, I felt better until the doctor went to check to see if I was dilated again, and it's like all the numbing from the epidural just went away, and I was in so much pain again. And it was so strange because the baby was coming down, so at this point you have to be like 10 centimeters dilated, by the way. I think I was like 5, and they were saying, okay, we should probably just go ahead and give you a C-section because we're not sure what's happening. We think that maybe your pelvis is too small, and so I was ready to go because at this point now, I think it's the 31st, and I was tired and nothing was happening. And my whole entire family was afraid, of course, and they did not want me to have a C-section. I was so tired. I wanted to have one because I wanted to get this whole thing over with. The doctor was like, we're gonna try one more time. If you don't dilate anymore, not try anything, they're just gonna wait, and if you don't dilate, then we're gonna have to do a C-section, of course. So when you go in labor, you don't get to drink anything, you don't get to eat anything. So I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm uncomfortable, I'm thirsty, and I'm in pain, and of course the anesthesiologist who's doing my epidural, whenever I was in pain, he would come give me some more, but he was kind of shocked that I was in pain still, so I dilated to about 8 centimeters on the 1st, 7 or 8 on the 1st, and they were like, okay, you know what, let's give it a few hours. We think today is the day. Now this is July 1st, okay? They're like, today is the day. Either way, whether it's vaginally or C-section, you're giving birth today, because I've been in labor for entirely too long, so the morning, so that was the morning. So then in the afternoon they came to check me, and I think I went from 7 to 8, and then I stayed at 8. So in the evening, probably around 7 o'clock of the 1st, the doctor came in and said, you have tried everything, we've tried everything, you've been a real trooper, I know you're tired, I know you're in pain, I know all this. I think it's time that we go ahead and do the C-section. My family was just like, oh, so nervous. And I was ready to give birth, like I said. And I said, okay, let's do it. So they prep you for, the C-section. And then the C-section is supposed to take about an hour and a half. The entire time, mind you, my doctor, I hadn't seen her. She hadn't come by, nothing. I don't know what happened to my doctor. So it's just the doctors at the hospital, who are dealing with this. And I asked for my doctor, and nobody knew where she was. So, thanks a lot, I guess. So they whisked me away to do my C-section, and it's only one person that could be in the room with you at that point, so it's my husband. And I was awake for this. They just numb you from like the waist down with a lot of epidural, because they want you to be awake for the C-section. And they make you drink this like liquid. It tastes really bitter. I don't know what that's supposed to do, but you're supposed to drink it before you have a C-section. So, everything's going well, it seems. They take the baby out, of course. I can't see anything. And I didn't know the gender, of course, so I found out at that point that I was having a girl. And I didn't get to hold her. They took her away because I had an infection. They wanted to check the VSD, and because I had gestational diabetes, they wanted to check her glucose levels as well. So I didn't get to see her. I didn't get to hold her. She went straight into the hallway, and I was anxious, for them to stitch me up so I can go and be with my baby. Well, as they were putting, because they take some stuff out and they got to put it back in, as they're doing that, that's when they find the fibroids. Now, I knew that I had one. I thought that I had one because that's what I was told, up. It was like up near where my ribs are. It was, since it was on the outside of my uterus, like growing up there. No, boo-boo. I had quite a few fibroids, and one of them was in my birth canal. They were growing on my cervix like little mushrooms, and because of that, that's why my baby could not come out vaginally. The fibroids were blocking the birth canal, and they were smushing her head, so she had a little bit of head trauma when she was born. She had a cone-shaped head, and she was just sitting at the birth canal, and she couldn't come out. So, because when the doctor tried to touch to see if I was dilated, she could feel her head, but she couldn't come down. So the doctor was like, I don't know what these are. Nobody told me anything about this and that. I'm gonna have to take these out, and I might have to give you a hysterectomy. I don't know. And I'm laying there, not really having much of a choice. And the anesthesiologist is like, okay, I gotta put you under now. They have to put me to sleep at this point. And they kick my husband out, and I'm in there, by myself. And the doctor's like, she had to get quick permission from me, and I went to sleep right after that, but I told her okay. And she said, I'm going to do everything I can, to save your life and save your uterus and save all your womanly parts. But if I can't remove it, then I have to take everything out. And so I said, okay, it's not a lot you can say. So after that, my family was informed, which was scary, of course, for my entire family, because they didn't know, they knew about the fibroids, but, the doctor was afraid. I've never seen a doctor afraid before, and my family was afraid. And then you're not supposed to have other types of surgeries on top of a C-section. Your body can't handle it. So guess what? I lost a lot of blood. I had 3 blood transfusions, and then my heart and my lungs started to shut down, and so they had to put me in what they called a medical induced coma. And my family was terrified. So I now was in ICU. And so my baby was born at 9 o'clock on July 1st. I didn't wake up till the afternoon of July 2nd. I didn't know where I was. They told me where I was, but I was aware that I gave birth and all of that. I just didn't know what date it was. And when family started to come and see me, that's when they told me, oh, they put you in some kind of a coma. And, I was kind of nervous after that, because I was like, well, what day is it? So it was only the 2nd, the afternoon, of course, and I still hadn't seen my baby, and they were trying to take me to a recovery room so that I could see my baby. My baby and I didn't meet each other until probably about the evening of July 2nd, because they had to find a bed and space for me. And when they finally found space, that's when I met my baby, and that experience was it was great. I thought she was beautiful. I don't know, I was stunned. So because of the other surgery, I had to have a stomach doctor. because my stomach was still swollen. I had to have like surgical team, had to have a gynecology team, had to have a wound care team. So when they give you a C-section, they give you a little bikini line cut, but because she had to remove my fibroids, my cut went up to my belly button. And because everything happened so fast and the doctors were pretty much woken up out of their sleep to come and rush and get me, they had to staple me. And so I had a long recovery in the hospital. It was very painful. You know, I couldn't hold my baby. I couldn't breastfeed because my body went through too much trauma. My breast milk wasn't coming in. I was really emotionally not in a good place, And I found out that, from being open so long, I had gotten another infection, and I couldn't breathe on my own, so I was on oxygen, and my baby was on antibiotics. It was just so dramatic. I ended up getting discharged, my baby and myself, and going home on July the 6th. So I spent a total of 8 days in the hospital. 2 weeks postpartum, I had to get my staples removed, and there was like a hole in my suture that was like probably that big, and it was kind of deep. At first they were saying that it might close up on its own, but probably a week later it didn't. And that's when I found out that it was deep. And then we had to do something called packing it, which is where you take this packing material in a Q-tip, and you have to push the paper in and pull it out every day and push it in, because your body has to heal from the inside out, and you can't just put a stitch over it or anything like that, because if you do, fluid will build around it, and then we'll have a big old infection and a problem. So 4 weeks postpartum, I found out my baby had suffered some head trauma, and we had to check into the children's hospital, and we ended up being discharged the next day. It wasn't that bad, but it was very scary to me, and I was still trying to heal, so I was just completely uncomfortable. It took about 6 weeks, I think, or the first hole, and mind you, I say the first hole, to heal. And then about a week after that, another hole came, and that's when I found out that I had a hematoma. You can Google that if you want to know what that is. So I had to do the same packing, but this hole was a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper. I couldn't do the packing by myself, so my sister had to help me, but every day we had to take this packing material and push it in there all the way until the hole filled up, and bunched up on itself, and then we pulled it out, and it was the one with the hematoma, guys, was completely painful. However, that one took probably about 2 months to heal, and after that I didn't have any more problems. After the second one healed, I wanted to tell you guys this story because giving birth is hard. It's different for every woman, but it's hard, and you literally can lose your life. So anybody who's got a mama out there, or a baby mama, whatever, you really need to appreciate them, because they go through a lot to bring these babies into the world. All that pain and all that recovery that I had to go through, I am so grateful, to God, because I live to talk about this. I live to be here for my daughter, and I am making this, video because 6 months postpartum, I'm finally got released from the doctor, and it was just a long road. I still have a lot of healing to do, because it's going to take about a year for my body to fully heal, but you know, I'm halfway there. And some women go through a lot of postpartum depression and just a lot of things, you know. It's a lot. So I just, oh, by the way, I do breastfeed my daughter now. My milk finally came in probably 2 to 3 weeks after I had her. But you know, after giving birth, I really appreciate my mom so much more, because you really realize all that you go through to give birth. I am so happy to be my daughter's mother, and seeing her beautiful smiling face every morning makes everything, well, thank you. Thanks. It makes all of it worth it. So, thank you guys for watching this video. I know it's long, but I really wanted to talk about this because it's the new year. I really need to get myself let that out so that I can move forward into the new year with that off my shoulder. But again, thank you guys for watching this video, and if you want, go ahead and share your labor stories down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to thumbs up, hit that bell button, and subscribe to join the Mommy Club because it's awesome. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.